And welcome everybody, and thank you for signing up to come to the meeting today. The topic is life after breast cancer treatment, and specifically about lifestyle changes, nutrition. As you know, after cancer treatment and looking forward, you want to be able to prevent your cancer reoccurring. So today we will focus on the role of nutrition in cancer prevention. Okay, I'm sure you've heard of the expression, let food be thy medicine by Hippocrates. In a sense, this is true, but food intake, of course, is a long-acting cumulative medicine, and it takes time to see the results, unlike a quick-acting medicine. The learning objectives for today are to, one, be able to develop a healthy eating plan using the New American Plate, explain what a modified plant-based diet is, understand what phytonutrients are in foods and how they are protective against cancer. 4, identify sources of fiber and its benefits to cancer prevention. And identify food practices that may increase the risk of cancer and estrogen production. Okay, this slide showing the colorful phytonutrients. I'm sure you've heard the expression painting your plate with colors of the rainbow, but it is also actually very important, not just figuratively. The phytonutrients, also known as phytochemicals, some are listed here according to their color. What phytonutrients are compounds in plant-based foods that give plants their rich pigment, their taste, and their aroma. They are actually the plant's immune system, but they also protect people from certain types of cancer and other diseases like heart disease. Here we see the red lycopene, containing the phytonutrient lycopene and anthocyanins. Examples, of course, apples, cherries, cranberries, tomatoes. The orange include the carotenes as beta-carotene, flavonoids, and curcumin. I wanted to point out too that beta-carotene will help neutralize free radicals that may damage cells. So there is a connection with cancer there. And I just want to go back to the red. The lycopene phytonutrient is a scavenger of free radicals and protects against certain types of cancers, especially lung cancer. Green, including the sulforaphanes, isocyanate, and indoles, they are important for inhibiting the action of carcinogens. And of course, you think of all your greens and broccoli and Brussels sprouts, all those cruciferous vegetables. The blue purple also include the anthocyanins and resveratrol, which help delay cellular aging and block against the formation of blood clots. The white or brown contain the phytonutrients anthocyanin and lignans, which have anti-tumor properties. Okay, now on this next slide, just a reminder, we're aiming for 5 or more servings of vegetables and fruits a day. The goal is actually 5 to 10, but you want to start off by aiming for the 5. A good suggestion is eating in 2s. Try to have 2 servings of fruits, vegetables in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 at dinner. Of course, that could be divided up during the course of the day for snacks. And what counts as a serving? A couple of leafy greens, berries, melon chunks, and I love to say that berries and melon chunks are high in water content, so you can have a pretty good amount of those, and they're still equal calorically to other types of fruits. Other servings, half a cup of other types of fruits and vegetables, cooked fruits and vegetables, medium-sized piece of fruit or a vegetables, serving a 1/4 cup of dried fruit and a 1/2 cup of fruit juice, or 4 ounces. Okay. Now, what is a plant-based diet? I'd like to think of it as one that's more modified and not strictly vegetarian or vegan. A plant-based diet, though, focuses on foods derived from plant sources, as fruits, vegetables, also including grains, legumes, as lentils, beans, nuts, seeds, and meat substitutes as soy. So it doesn't mean you're never going to eat meat or dairy, but you're choosing more proportionately more of your foods from plant sources. So small amounts of animal products can be included in the way I'm going to explain to you. But first of all, why are we limiting consumption of red and processed meats? They are higher in saturated fats, and high fat intakes are associated with a higher estrogen level, which is linked to cancer growth and linked to breast cancer specifically. Also, processed meats will contain harmful substances like nitrates and nitrites. So the hot dogs, the bacon, these are known carcinogens. Okay, here is the American Institute for Cancer Research, their new American plate. We want to fill, I'm sure you've seen this before, you want to fill 2/3 of your plate with plant foods, including the non-starchy vegetables, whole grains, beans, fruits, nuts, and seeds. But keep in mind that not all plant-based foods are healthy, meaning highly refined and packaged foods like crackers or a boxed pasta like mac and cheese will have much of the fiber and nutrients stripped away, and they're high in salt, sugar, and fat. We also want to limit refined foods like regular pasta, white bread, and white rice. We want to choose whole grains, and here you see, I think, a brown rice with some orzo in it. Okay, let's first of all look at the old American plate. This shows a home style favorite, heavy on the meat. So the focus of the plate is on the meat. And of course you see this in many restaurants still nowadays. The meat is of course high in fat and calories, and this plate is generally low on phytonutrients and fiber and high in fats. But a few changes can bring it closer to the American plate. Let's look at a transitional plate. This features a more moderate 4 to 6 ounce serving of meat, has a large serving of non-starchy, high fiber green vegetable. Here you see green beans, but they're not the canned variety. They're more of a fresh green bean, and some whole grain brown rice. So we're more on track here, but we can further improve it. This next page, we see the new American plate. We have at least 2 kinds of vegetables, and actually there's more here than 2, in different colors, which signify different phytonutrients. A whole grain serving for increased fiber also. This one's probably quinoa, but brown rice, bulgur, and millet. And one of my favorite ones is farro, which is more of the ancient grains, but it's not refined. And there's a modest 3 ounce serving of your protein, your meat. Here it is, grilled chicken with a seasoning like paprika, turmeric, or curry. Looks like that's what's on it. So this plate shows a pretty wide variety of plant-based foods with a diverse assortment of cancer-fighting nutrients. Here's another new plate option. It's a stir fry over whole grains. The meats, poultry is more of a condiment, and there's a variety of different vegetables also, like the carrots and broccoli, so not just one So you're getting different phytonutrients. Now I just want to show a slide of the Mediterranean diet, which is a pretty good depiction of a modified plant-based eating pattern. And I like to say this is not a diet, but more of an eating pattern. Here we have foods that are high in fiber with fresh vegetables, fruits, beans, legumes as the focus of the plates. We're high in the healthy fats, olive oil, nuts, and seeds. Fish or seafood is usually 1 or 2 times a week. There's a focus on the whole grains. The Mediterranean diet does include some animal foods in small amounts, poultry, eggs, cheese, yogurt, and red meat can be served occasionally in small amounts. And there's a heavy use of seasonings, especially garlic and other aromatic herbs. But I just want to point out, low in saturated fats, so the olive oil in place of butter, high in the monounsaturated omega-3 fatty acid foods, especially walnuts, fatty fish as mackerel, herring, albacore, tuna, and salmon. And the Mediterranean eating pattern, there's been large population studies done that show there's a reduction in several chronic diseases, heart disease, diabetes, depression, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and breast, colon, and prostate cancer. Okay, now let's talk about fiber. In a study from the journal Cancer in July 2020, fiber consumption was linked to a lower breast cancer risk. The authors in this study, they searched all relevant prospective studies that were published through July 2019. And it was found that individuals with the highest consumption of fiber had an 8% lower risk of breast cancer. So this is strong evidence that lifestyle factors as diet may decrease the risk of breast cancer. But of course, a more cause and effect randomized trial is needed to really test it. But still, it's a pretty strong evidence that fiber intake, both soluble and total fiber in this study, showed a reduction in breast cancer in both premenopausal and postmenopausal women. This slide is showing the 2 types of fiber, the soluble fiber and the insoluble. The soluble dissolves in water, and it helps actually in your stomach to slow down digestion to give you a full feeling, whereas the insoluble adds bulk to the diet and helps with constipation and has a laxative effect. So it kind of slows the move, I should say not slows, the opposite. It helps the body to eliminate waste. So both types of fiber are beneficial to reducing cancer risk. And they just show examples of the soluble and insoluble fibers in the slide. Now, other beneficial effects of fiber on reducing breast cancer risk from the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Texas shows that a high fiber diet helps to control blood glucose level and improves insulin sensitivity. Fiber reduces the resorption of estrogen, which thereby reduces the circulating levels of estrogen. Biologically active compounds like the phytonutrients, isoflavone, lignans, phytoestrogens, and flavonoids are found in whole foods that are high in fiber. They are all anti-estrogenic, anti-inflammatory, enhance immune function. They detoxify and repair damaged DNA. And also this cancer center said that recent research suggests that fiber may help lower the levels of the marker for inflammation, the C-reactive protein, and prolonged inflammation will weaken the immune system. And I'll talk a little more about that later. Okay, now this slide is just further talking about reducing cancer risk with whole grains and dietary fiber. And the 90 grams is for whole grains in general, which is not the same as dietary fiber recommendation. But here are label servings of whole grains that you'll see on packaged foods. So what a serving size is. In the next slide, and these slides they will point out too that how beneficial fiber is for colon cancer, of course, but the American Cancer Institute for Cancer Research recommends at least 30 grams of dietary fiber a day to help lower overall cancer risk. And they mention a 10-gram increase in dietary fiber is linked to a 7% lower risk of colorectal cancer in a certain study that they cited, and some high fiber foods listed there. I should point out that the average fiber intake of Americans is generally between 10 to 15 grams, and the recommendation for fiber is 25 to 38 grams for people under 50 years of age, and 21 to 30 grams per day for those over 50 years of age. So there's a lot to be made up there for fiber in the American diet. Okay, this next slide is just a review, and you might have seen this chart before, of the American Institute for Cancer Research's recommendations for cancer prevention. And they go over all the points that I mentioned already about eating a diet rich in whole grains, vegetables, fruits, limiting consumption of red and processed meat. And we're going to talk a little bit more about these other items, such as weight control, being physically active, limiting sugar sweetened drinks, limiting consumption of fast foods and alcohol consumption. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here I just want to point out other food practices that increase cancer risk. Fast foods, high in starches, sodium, added sugars, fried foods, and unhealthy fats. And the types of fats that are used for food preparation are typically unhealthy. And if that, again, that high fat diet intake that we want to avoid, especially to decrease breast cancer risk. Too much added sugar. The American Heart Association recommends no more than 100 calories or 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day for women, and 150 calories or 9 teaspoons a day for men. I just always like to point out about beverages, drinking water or unsweetened beverages. 12 ounces of Coke has 9 to 10 teaspoons of sugar in it. So just visualize those teaspoons of sugar. Another points to decrease cancer risk, avoidance of tobacco, including smokeless and e-cigarettes, and also secondhand smoke, and use of sun protection, using a broad spectrum sunscreen, wearing protective clothing, and not using tanning beds. Okay, other risk factors for breast cancer. And drinking alcohol does increase the risk of several cancers, including breast, colorectal, esophageal, liver, oral, and stomach cancer. Alcohol has been found to influence the blood levels of estrogen and other hormones that may increase the risk of breast cancer. And alcohol is a recognized carcinogen, and it can cause cellular damage that triggers cancer. So for cancer prevention overall, it's best not to drink. But if you do Choose to drink definitely in moderation. The limit, I'm sure you've heard before, commonly is limiting to 1 drink for women and 2 drinks for men. That's per day. And these are the alcohol equivalents of beer, wine, and hard liquor in the corner here. Okay, more lifestyle factors that benefit health and decrease cancer risk. Maintaining or achieving a healthy weight based on the body mass index or waist circumference. BMI desirable less than 25, waist circumference less than 30 inches for women, less than 40 inches for men. Being physically active. It's recommended by the American Heart Association at least 150 minutes per week of moderate activity or 75 minutes of vigorous physical activity, including strength training. But of course, that activity, meaning aerobic activity, but then adding strength training to that. Examples of moderate aerobic activity: walking, yoga, swimming, bowling, vigorous activity, jogging, running, biking, tennis, dancing, and more strenuous swimming, actually. But talk to your doctor before beginning any exercise program. Managing stress, important for your mental health. Taking time for relaxation. So examples: spending time with family, being outdoors, listening to music, reading, journaling, hobbies, meditating. I want to point out that scrolling on your cell phone or watching TV does not count here. That is part of the stress. So unplug yourself from electronics when you're relaxing. Adequate sleep. Our culture does not value sleep, but getting adequate deep and REM type sleep is so important for your health. So that REM sleep. Are you having dreams? That means you're getting some good REM sleep, but suggested 7 to 8 hours a day, a night. Okay, I thought it might be kind of fun to do a meal makeover. And here we see a before breakfast with the instant oatmeal that's flavored and has brown sugar and whole milk, a large glass of orange juice, and coffee with creamer and sugar. And the nutritional analysis is down here. Whereas the after, we're increasing the fiber intake greatly with adding old-fashioned or steel-cut oats, adding some ground flax seeds, a small amount, and 2 tablespoons of nuts, a cup of mixed berries, and a couple of tablespoons of plain Greek yogurt to add some more protein, and then black coffee. So we can already see here how the amount of fiber in the after breakfast is much higher and the calories are lower. And the protein, a little greater too. For a lunch, a typical American lunch: salad with iceberg lettuce, tomatoes, bacon bits, croutons, ranch dressing, sandwich with processed meats and cheese, mayo on white bread, potato chips, and a soda. This comes to a whopping over 1,000 calories, high fat intake, and low in fiber. The after, we have a salad with various greens that are higher in fiber, beans added, pumpkin seeds, a homemade dressing with olive oil as the base and some herbs. Sandwich, here we are using red meat, but a small portion, and whole grain bread. And we have, in addition, apple and water for beverage. So much lower in calories, protein's higher, the fat is more than half as less, and the fiber is many times more. And for dinner, we're both making chili here, but the before is using the 80% lean and topping it with corn chips and sour cream, having cornbread and butter on the side and a sweet tea. And here you see the nutrition breakdown. The after, however, we use a much lower fat ground beef. And of course, you can always use like a ground turkey or chicken. Use more beans and topping it with avocado slices, green onions, and cilantro as an herb. We have on the side, instead of the bread, the roasted vegetables with seasoning and a whole orange for fruit for dessert. And we see how the calories have decreased. The protein, protein actually isn't as high, but the fiber is many times higher. And for the daily total, I thought it would be good to see we have a much lower calorie level. And if you're thinking of losing weight, you definitely want to be in the after category. Protein's about the same. The fat is actually twice as high in the before, and the fiber is more than twice as high. So, definitely we want to go for the using the additions of higher fiber, lower fat diet that's seen in the after category. Now, I just wanted to talk a little bit about an anti-inflammatory diet because there is a lot of information out there about it and how it can be beneficial and what it is. The reason why I think that there's so much interest is that prolonged inflammation can damage body cells and tissue and weaken your immune system. Of course, not all inflammation is bad. It's normal for the body to have an inflammatory response for fighting infection and for repairing an injury. But if inflammation persists, there is a cause for concern. And cancer is considered to be an inflammatory type of disease. Now, to help, oops, gotta go back. Sorry about that. A lot of the same recommendations that I've already reviewed increase the intake of plant foods, and fiber may also lower the level of C-reactive protein, which is a marker for inflammation. Limiting processed foods, again, increasing your intake of omega-3 fatty acids, salmon, tuna, flax seeds, walnuts, avocado, olive oil, and less omega-6 oils or foods as corn, soybean, and omega-6 in packaged foods. So make sure you read your food labels. And also limiting red meat, replacing animal protein with plant protein, and eating more fermented foods with probiotics as yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi, and limiting added sugar. So chronic inflammation can be caused by obesity, smoking, stress, lack of exercise, but also diet can have an influence. So reducing chronic inflammation may help to lower your cancer risk and your risk of other chronic diseases as heart disease, Alzheimer's, and diabetes. Okay, just in general, ideas to get started on a plant-based diet. Filling half your plate with non-starchy vegetables, varying the color, having vegetables with hummus, salsa, or guacamole as a snack. For lunch, making a veggie wrap with roasted vegetables, low-fat cheese, and a whole wheat wrap. Drinking your vegetables like with a V8 juice or a vegetable smoothie, including whole grains or nuts at breakfast time. cooking a vegetarian meal at least one night a week, and building a meal around a salad and eating fruit for dessert. So those are all some other ideas to get started.